Squeezes on. The bunt is down. The run scores. And Dibble throws the ball away. Dascenzo to second. It almost looked like Dibble was throwing the ball at Dascenzo.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Rooster Crows podcast. I'm Rob Deere, and today we have a very special guest, and I've been looking forward to having him on. I want to welcome my good friend and ex-teammate, Doug Dascenzo. Welcome, Dougie.
Hey, Rob, Rooster here. How you doing, man?
I'm doing good. The real reason why, I wanted to have you on for a lot of different reasons, but one of the main reasons I want you to share with everybody. You've been a player in the big leagues, and I know this, but you tell me, how long were you a player in the big leagues?
In the major league level, I spent 5 seasons, parts of 7, and then a 6th season as a third base coach of the Atlanta Braves at the major league level. 7 other seasons were in the minor leagues prior to reaching the major league level, and back and forth. As you well know, our last little tenure, or my tenure in 1996 with the Las Vegas Stars, was kind of our little farewell season, or mine anyway. And then I went right into coaching after that and spent 27 years of coaching for a total of 40 years in professional baseball.
And that was the point I wanted to get to, is you spent 40 years in baseball, and if we were to stand next to each other, there's a difference in us, right? Size-wise.
Oh my God, David and Goliath.
But
yes.
But there's a difference in us, and my point is I'm so excited for you, and I kept telling you for years, I can't wait till you retire. It gives you a peace of mind, and to not know that you have to go to spring training. I know you love the game, but it's like now you get to sit back and relax, and it's so cool to see that you didn't make it 40 years coaching and playing by hitting home runs, right?
Correct.
You have been successful because you were a different type of hitter. And I try to talk to young players and stuff, and it's understanding what type of hitter you are and how you can impact and how you can help your team win. You knew how to play baseball. You knew how to teach baseball, and I've seen it over the years. So hats off to you for being able to, to be in the game that long and be able to help players, and just think about the knowledge and all the experience and stuff that you've had over 40 years and how fun that is. And like you said, the greatest part, one of the greatest part of our careers is we did get to kind of like have a, we kicked off our retirement in a way. We all wanted to get to the big leagues. We were all in Vegas. We all came in together, and, we had some of our teammates. We had Mike Sharperson. We had
Randy
Reddy. He had all the Smith pitcher. It was fun because we all came together. We all had major league time, and we kind of got thrown into this team, and it was so fun to get to know each other and to be able to, I remember we went to the playoffs, I think. And, every guys wanted to win. We were like so excited to try to win. But I remember that, that season where we all were together and how much fun that was and how connected we all got. Right.
Yeah. The beauty of it, Rob, really, you take the whole big picture, right? We're talking because we're baseball guys and all that stuff. You take the whole big picture of the world and all the family members that were behind you over all the years, and the passion of it. Just happened to be baseball for us. It could have been golf, it could have been something else, but it just happened to be baseball, and all the great people that were behind us and taught us the basic fundamentals of playing in the game, taught us the basic fundamentals of living life and paying bills and being away from home. And because we had that one connection with baseball, as well as the other parts of it from family members and loved ones and and high school coaches and college coaches. That's what made it so special, I think, we just happened to land on a baseball field in the desert. And we just had, everyone had that same competitive nature, had the same goal on a day-to-day basis, and had the same basic fundamental foundation of life in itself. And man, we are so fortunate and so lucky to have one another.
I remember in Vegas, I walked up to an umpire, and it was at the end of the season, and I told the umpire, I said, "This is the last at bat I will ever take in a professional uniform." And he started laughing. I go, "No, I'm serious. I'll never have another at bat." And threw me a couple pitches, and I wasn't looking to hit the ball the other way. I was going to leave. I wanted to leave Earth. I hit a ball good, but I didn't. I hit it like a one hopper to shortstop. But I remember that at bat and how important it was. I remember my last at bat in the big leagues, but for some reason, this was kind of like everything was over with. And we both got, we got both called up in September. We got a chance to get back to the big leagues. So it all worked out good. And along the way, as you mentioned, there were some pretty funny stories, pretty crazy times.
Absolutely. I mean, I would agree 100% on everything you just said. And I think you never forget your first at bat, right? Ever. Like, that first time that you're walking. I got a picture up here in the corner of the room where I'm walking up to the plate, and then the pitches, I got a second picture. It's the ball's halfway there to home plate. And, something you would never, ever, ever forget. And obviously probably your last one either. Now, everything in between, because you're so locked in and so playing as a team and trying to accomplish that goal you set out for in spring training to get to the World Series and win it, just like all kind of blends in together a little bit. You can remember some things here and there, of course, sure. but for the most part, that 1996 season in Las Vegas with all those guys, and you know what they say, man. What happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. So we obviously are not going to share everything that they said that happened, but I can remember one, and we should have known this right out the get-go, because as soon as we left spring training, I'm going to tell this one story here, and I'm going to probably tell a couple more by the time we're done. We all checked into the Luxor Hotel. You people that have been in Las Vegas, you know what I'm talking about, the big pyramid one. And we had a practice scheduled for the next day at like 11 o'clock. And we threw our bags down, and we took off, and having the time of our life after 6 weeks spring training. And somebody later on throughout the night and into the morning, they said, "Hey, time to go to practice." And there we went about 10:30 to practice.
But we lost a really special guy during that time, Mike Sharperson. And I don't know if people remember, but we had a group. I mean, we were all together. Every night we were at someplace doing something. And he was with us that night. And I remember he had left, and he said he wanted to get back and go back home and get some rest. And so everybody was like giving him high fives. "All right, Sharpie, you'll see you tomorrow," this and that. Thinking nothing of it, he walks out of the hotel, and 4 o'clock in the morning, I got a phone call in my hotel room. Tell us what happened.
Yeah, so I got a phone call. Maybe, I don't know who was called first or whatever. But in any event, Mike was going to get called up. The team was in Montreal at the time. He was going to fly out to go to Montreal the next morning. And, of course, everybody was excited, like you say, tight-knit group. We would get to the ballpark early, hang out, play the game. After the game, hang out, right? I mean, that was every day, the whole season. So, yeah, we were very, very excited for Mike and the big club to be getting a kind of person and ball player that he was. But he took off. It was a rainy night. He missed the exit, and unfortunately, he got killed in a car accident that night. Yeah, we were, they asked after all that happened. The next day, we got to the clubhouse. Of course, they canceled the game. And we decided we had to get out of the clubhouse and go somewhere and just hang out and just be with each other, which we needed, obviously. And then maybe a week later, the San Diego organization asked me to go talk to his memorial on behalf of the San Diego Padres. And so I flew out somewhere in South Carolina. I can't remember exactly where it was. I got in a car. I drove down this dirt road somewhere, and on this ball field out in the middle of nowhere, there was all these people just sitting there waiting, and it was a memorial for Mike, and got to see his wife and a little daughter, and we were talking about this the other day, prepping for this podcast, and we hope that everybody's doing well over in the Sharperson family. We miss you.
Yeah, definitely. And the thing is, I remember KT, our general manager for the Padres, Kevin Towers, came into town, and everybody in the organization was just devastated. And then we had to play. And I remember the next day after that whole ordeal, we had a game in Vegas, and there wasn't a person in that dugout that had dry eyes. I remember distinctively, I was walking up to home plate to hit, and I was doing this. I mean, I couldn't stop. And it was just like, it was terrible. It just took everything out of us. And then I think all of a sudden we kind of like regrouped, and we said, you know what? Let's win this, or let's do something special at the end and for Sharpie. And we always, I mean, we had a lot of fun, and we had the backing in Vegas. We were remember at the Hard Rock Cafe, they would give us the Hard Rock Cafe t-shirts and say Hard Rock. And we'd walk up to the plate with our t-shirt on because we had the vested jerseys, and the umpires would look at us like, what? We have all these Hard Rock stickers on the shirts, and it was so much fun.
And yeah, that was perfect. They were black t-shirts, had the logo on it. Our undershirts were black, with the Selfish jerseys. And, I mean, that was beautiful, and, at that point, like you say, when we had that, that spirit of Mike with us. And then when Japan threw Randy Reddy out of that country, we picked him up on the way back home to get a couple at bats from him. So, that he filled in, obviously he stepped right in line, but,
Yeah,
it
was a big acquisition.
I don't know if you know this, Rob, but, that particular roster that year in 1996, we're going to have to fact check this stuff. I don't have my committee got the day off today, but, I believe, and that was an older team in AAA, okay, right? You mentioned all the names, but I believe if you added up all the Major League service, that the 1996 Las Vegas Stars had more Major League service years, than the San Diego Padres did that year, because they were just a bunch of younger guys.
Right. I did get back to the big leagues, played for Boch in San Diego for a little while, and then at the end of the season, I was done.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I played one more year after that, 97, in Las Vegas, and that was my final season of playing. I didn't make it back to the major league level at that time, but those are times that we will never forget. And like you say, we probably hadn't seen each other for a few years here now, but even some of the guys that you haven't seen for 10 or 15 years, the beauty of this game is that it's almost like you were never away from them, because you just sit down and we just talk like we're talking now, like we were never apart since 1996, and that's 28 years ago, for goodness sake.
These are lifelong friends, and I always tell everybody that the people that I put on the podcast, these are some of the greatest people you'll ever meet. It just so happens they were great baseball players. But you guys, I mean, it's so special that the camaraderie that we have amongst each other, and how it lasts forever. I mean, we're friends forever.
Yeah, you know what? And what's interesting about that too, if you really, really think about it. So we had 6 weeks of spring training.
Yeah.
Right. And then we have a minor league season, 4.5, 5 months. If you're lucky to be in the big league level at the end of the year, you get another month, right? So you really don't have a whole lot of time, and if you get called up for 6 weeks or I'm get called up for a month, you're apart that way. So you're looking at like 5 to 6 months.
Right.
That was the only time that me and you ever spent together in our lifetime, 60 years, 62 years or whatever it is, and still feel the way that we feel about each other is very, very special.
Yeah.
I really believe it came from not just the time spent on the field, batting practice and the games or whatever, but it's prior to that and it's after the game. I mean, you're spending 12, 14, 16 hours a day. It makes a big difference.
Doesn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And when you think about all of us playing together, there's always fun stories that come along with that. And we do have some pretty good stories.
Yep. Yes, we do. Which one would you like to share? Okay, I'll start.
Okay.
I can remember spring training, and I was coming off the field, and you and Rene Gonzalez were lifting weights. I don't know if you remember this. I weighed 150 pounds, soaked and wet, okay? Now, Robbie and Ray people, these guys would just throw weights on there. If it looked right, they would start lifting weights, okay? And I can remember coming through the weight room there in San Diego, and you stopped me, and you and Renee stopped me, and you were like, "Hey, Dougie, come here, man. Here's little old Dougie. Here, see me some bench press too." You remember this?
Mm-mm.
So I'm like, "How much is on there?" And then you and Renee are like, "No, go ahead, man." So I jumped on there, and I
probably did it 10 times.
No. I did one rep because there was like a lot of weight on it. And I asked you guys, I said, "How much was on there?" And you said 300 pounds. I was 150 pounds, and I bench pressed at 300 pounds, and I saw stars like for three. But that was one I remember from you two big guys, right? And here comes the little dude in and doing that, But which one do you remember?
Well, and I want the people to know that you don't stick around 40 years for not being a good player and you weren't in the weight room. You were strong, and you've always been strong. You were a great base runner. You could steal a base with anybody. You played defense. You understood yourself as a hitter. You didn't try and hit the ball in the air. You got on so we could drive you in. And it's that concept. It's that feeling, ABC baseball. And we all played that way. And I love the way that we all played. But one of my favorite stories, this was pretty crazy, but there were so many different things that happened. I had played with fellow teammate from Milwaukee, Dale Swaim, played with him for 7 years in Milwaukee. And then we I think he got traded to Pittsburgh or something. Anyway, we were playing against each other. I don't know if you remember this game. It was in Vegas. We were playing against Calgary. He was in Calgary. And one of our pitchers, I don't remember who it was, hit him in the hand, broke his hand. So after the game was over, he said, "Rooster, we need to go out." And he was, he's trying to get back to the big leagues. This was almost over. He breaks his hand. So I said, "I'll pick you up. Meet me out of my truck after the game. We'll go take off. We'll go." So we went out and went gambling, and we were drinking, and one thing led to another. I came back after I dropped him off at the hotel, and I felt like I couldn't drive all the way to my hotel. So I decided, well, you know what? I'm going to go to Cashman Field because I know somebody's going to be doing laundry, and I won't have to drive. I won't be able to sleep in my truck because it's 110, but I can get to the ballpark. So I go to the ballpark. And back in those days, I haven't drank in 8 years. Back in those days, we'd have beers and one thing will lead to another. So I decided to go see if I could sleep in the clubhouse because I thought somebody would be in there. I walk around. It's like 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. And
Yeah.
nobody's in there.
That's right. You're allowed in there. It's our house, right?
So I'm thinking, I could find a pile of towels to sleep on or whatever. It's totally locked. Nobody there. So remember next door, there was a convention center. So
Yeah.
I went over to the convention center and moseyed all around and, there's a door open. So I open the door and they have a bunch of these luggage carts in there. They have the things you see on the runway where people put all their luggage in. They had some of those in there for some reason. They had like pads in there and the whole deal. And back then, I used to always carry a bag. Sometimes it had a handgun in it, but I was registered. I can carry a handgun. So anyway, long story short, I decided I was going to crawl into this thing and go to sleep. Well, we had a double header the next day, and Kevin Towers was coming into town. So I go in there. I'm sound asleep. About 9 o'clock, all of a sudden I hear the whoosh. The drapes flew open. I'm like, what? And there's a cop standing over me with his gun out, and he's like, "Get out of there now!" And he grabs my bag, throws my bag on the ground. The gun fell out. He's like, "What?" And I'm sitting there sleeping, hungover, and I have a game in like 3 hours. So
Yeah.
They took me out. I told him I was a player for the Las Vegas Stars. I said I have a game in a couple hours. He's like, "Good luck with that."
Right.
Anyway, so then I went back in the clubhouse and I fell asleep in a pile of towels. I pulled the clubby. I go, "Don't let me sleep past this certain amount of time." And the next, slept again for a couple hours. And then I remember going out on the field, and I remember it was really hot that day. We had a day game, and Swaim is in the dugout on the other side, and he's got his hat pulled right over the top of his face, and he wouldn't even look at me. And I walked out to the foul line, and I started to bend down to do a stretch or do something to get loose, and I couldn't even do it. And I literally turned around, walked right back in the dugout, and sat there and waited for the game to start. And I think that day I ended up hitting like 3 homers. I had a double off the wall. And it was unbelievable. And KT knew what I went through the night before, and he sat there and watched this. I was just like amazed. But do you remember that?
Oh, yeah, for sure. You mentioned Edmonton, and so that brings me to another good story. So we had a player on our team by the name of Craig Colbert. He was a former catcher, bench coach for Buddy Black in San Diego, and he was just like the rest of us, right? And but from time to time, you and Craig would have your discussions, right?
And to this day, I love Dewey.
Oh yeah, we're everyone's fine, okay. But anyway, for people who don't know, in the PCL at the time, Pacific Coast League, when you would travel from city to city, it was 3:30 in the morning wake up calls. Not for the guys in Las Vegas, because we would, after the game, we would just go, and then from the casino, maybe just go right to the airport, right? Sleep on the plane. Well, we were traveling either from Edmonton to Calgary or Calgary to Vancouver, one of that trip or whatever. So we all decided to pitch in a few dollars. Again, these guys had already played their major league careers, basically. They had a little bit of glue left hanging around. So we're just going to rent a limousine, and we're just going to take off after the game from Edmonton and drive to Calgary.
In like a foot of snow. Remember it was...
Yeah, and it's snowing like crazy. We're playing cards. We're doing our thing, okay? And there's like 7 of us. Well, Craig Colbert was one of the participants in the ride, this particular ride. And we get about halfway down the road or whatever, 3 hours into it, and you're sitting on the one side of the table, and Colbert and Craig's on the other side, and you yell at the limousine driver, "Hey, stop this limo." And I'm like, uh-oh, guys, they're going to settle it right now. So there went 4 or 5 of us went out back behind and took a leak. And them two, Robbie and Craig, were rolling around in the snow, settling it. And then Robbie said, "Okay, everybody back in the car, let's go." So that was how you took care of things back then, or at least we did. But that was a funny story from the inside to the viewers. That was pretty funny.
And nobody, and it's always like when something like that happened, the next day was over with.
Over with.
We always handled it. We always handled it in a certain way, and that's the way it always gets handled correctly. So the press doesn't know, nobody knows. But those were the times, and I don't know if people understand, but when you talk about, back then, there was a lot of times where we would throw everybody in a limo and we'd take off and drive 5 hours to a road trip and play the game. And we didn't have to ride on the plane or the bus or whatever it was. We just kind of got to do our own thing. But
I was running the hallways and the dugouts the whole month of September, waiting to pinch run. Like you say, that was my game. I was a defender. I was a pinch runner. All your other guys did all the hard work. And I'll never forget, Chris doubled. I pinch ran. There was one out, last game of the season in Los Angeles, and Finley hit a one hopper to right field with one out, and Tim Flannery sending me home. And you know the end of that story. Because some dude named Mondesi was playing right field.
As soon as somebody found out that somebody went up to the big leagues, everybody on the whole team was like, yes. I mean, I remember we'd always celebrate. We'd always be like, nice. And then we'd watch and pay attention to how they were doing. And, it just, that was a nice way to end, playing and going through pressure. And I really had a fun time then. And I think I was even hitting 300 there. That's how screwed up everything was. But
yeah, I mean, that was a beautiful place to hit, man. I tell you what.
Let's talk a little bit about just baseball today.
Yeah.
I want to hear your thoughts on baseball today, because you're aware, you've been around, and I'm amazed that because we talked about this a few days ago, that the 40 years and how you played for 13 and then you coached for 25, and you weren't a home run guy, and it's like you got to do that because you knew how to play baseball. And I tell kids all the time, if you know how to play and you understand how to play correctly, they'll find a place for you to play. Would you agree?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Obviously, all the cliches, right? It takes hard work, passion, got to be competitive, all that kind of stuff. But all I try to do is make the phrase, be the best version of yourself, or whatever. But just try to be the most complete player that you can be, and you have value in and amongst a team if it's the right team. And I just happened to have at the right time. And you have to be lucky. You got to be healthy, all that stuff. But I just took everything. Either my father taught me how to play the game at a very young age, from my high school coaches, my college coaches, and it just kind of kept building and building and building. And then when my playing days were over, all I wanted to do was give back to the next guy.
As I said that.
And so, because the satisfaction of a coach, and you were a coach, obviously, at the major league level as well, but watching a player take information from you and applying it and getting better, and either getting to the big leagues or helping a major league team win, that is so satisfying that it's and so I never ever have my own agenda as far as me personally. My agenda every day as a player was to be the best player I could be, best teammate I could be. As a coach, my agenda was the players that I had, whether I was managing a minor league team, whether I was a outfield base running coordinator, I was going to give them everything I possibly knew and hope that their talents and their work ethic and their passion and whatever competitiveness they had would evolve into something that would help the major league organization that I was working for at the time. And so, I was with the Cubs the last 10 years, And, all I want to do is see these outfielders and these base runners go up and help the major league team win. That was it. It wasn't about, no, I want to be a third base coach. No, it's not about me. No. It's about the other guy. And so indirectly, I believe wholeheartedly, that's why I probably stayed in the game for so long, even after I got done playing.
Well, it's a hard game to get away from. We haven't played forever, but some way, somehow, something will pop up that puts us back into baseball. And that's, in my opinion, that's the most important thing, because we still get to be involved with baseball things. We still get to be involved with, golf tournaments or whatever it may be. And it's like a lifetime sorority with some of the greatest people ever in it. And it's like, I think what you said about coaching, and I feel the same way. And I when you said it, it really made a lot of sense. But for our whole lives, we've always been given information, right? So I tried to, at a young age, I tried to decide what I wanted to listen to and what I didn't want to listen to, as far as information, as far as hitting or playing the outfield or whatever it may be. But that's why I love to give private hitting instructions. I still give some. I was given 7 or 8 instruction lessons a day, and I loved every minute of it. I've had 3 major back surgeries and some other things, so I have to kind of be careful nowadays, but I will never stop teaching hitting or talking hitting or being around with it, being around hitting. And I have kids that take lessons from me now. And what I enjoy doing, I like to go watch their baseball games with their dads and see the progression. And it's like, when you can talk to an outfielder or you can talk to a base stealer, and you can sit there and you can watch them, maybe in a minor league game, maybe in a major league game. I mean, we had major league stars. We had David Freese and Chase Headley, Nick Hundley, Xavier Nady. We had a lot of good players in San Diego. Yeah. So when you sit back and you get to see what was given to me, now I'm sharing it. That's all we're doing, is sharing information. And then you see the progression of players getting better and getting to the big leagues. We've seen a lot of players that we coached playing in the big leagues that win a World Series. That's where it's like, I always tell people, watching a kid get a base hit or somebody that you're teaching, that base hit that you see is better than any base hit I ever had. Right?
Oh, absolutely.
Because
absolutely.
And that's the fun part that we get to experience now that we're retired.
Exactly. Yeah. You mentioned about, you wanted to see and get my opinion on, and I may have went wayward a little bit, but like what today's game compared to what we had experienced 30 years ago, right? So, from and these guys and these good players, these guys are good players. Okay. And baseball is very difficult, as you've heard a lot of people say. It is very difficult. At the same time, at the end of the day, the guys that have talent, the guys who work hard, the guys who do all that, they progress. They fly through the minor leagues. It wasn't no different really than 30 years ago. The better players went faster and they played longer, and the team that had the more better players probably had a better chance of winning more games or whatever, But now with the evolution of all and the way the game has gone, and the transitioning throughout the whole world, not just baseball. I mean, it's the whole world with technology and all this stuff. And I get it. I understand it, the more resources you have and all that stuff, and, to make better decisions, to evaluate better. And I understand all that, and I get all that. At the same time, if you think about it, I mean, these guys are so nowadays, and we talked about the time spent before games, whether we get to the clubhouse in Vegas in 1996 at 11 o'clock in the morning or 11:30, hang out, take BP at 3:30, play the game at 6:30.
That sounds fun to me right now.
After the game, smoke cigars and drink beer in the clubhouse. Okay. We had to kind of figure it out. We had to do a little more legwork, or a lot more legwork, as far as trying to figure out stuff. Whether it was me talking to you about hitting because you was a better hitter than I was, or defensively, vice versa, whatever. We kind of had to figure that out, kind of like on our own, more so than the players have to do today. They've got this department to do this. They've got that department to do that. They've got nutrition people, mental skills people, and you've seen it. You hadn't been away too long, but these guys, as good and as athletic and as in shape as they are, it's a lot more customized, I guess, nowadays. As far as like, okay, Joe needs to make sure he's here, right?
Right.
And it's scheduled out a lot more. It's not so much regimented, which, it's just really scheduled out. And that's how the players are today. That's just the way it is today. And that's fine. Hey, they're playing the game. That's their career. That's all fine and dandy. I'm not knocking that at all. But when the game's over, there's a lot of times, even in the minor league season, 10 minutes you go in the clubhouse, everyone's gone. And so to me, I don't know. Maybe they're back in the room talking baseball. Maybe they're trying to figure out a swing or whatever, or hanging out or building relationships that they will last forever, like the one me and you have. I don't know, because I don't travel with the teams. I don't go home with them, and I don't do all that. And it's really just the way society has gone, I think, and the way technology's kind of changed things. And again, that's fine,
Does money play a part in that?
I don't know. I don't know. I'm not real sure. I just think the time, I just watch and see like the time of day. Like, it used to be you'd get 3 months off in the season. Like the season would be over. I'd take November, December, half of January off.
Yeah.
Ain't no off seasons no more. These guys are grinding, man. They're grinding all the time, man, and it's a long season to begin with.
And people don't realize, I didn't have to do it. I don't know if you did, but people don't realize these teams like the Yankees and the Dodgers, these teams, they're playing an extra 2 months during playoffs and the World Series and all that stuff. And it's like, it's such a long season. And I remember getting done with the season, going home and sleeping and just not moving for 3 or 4 days.
Yeah.
You're just absolutely exhausted. Plus everything hurts. And plus I would have a knee surgery or something. The game's changed. And I think,
but the one thing that hasn't changed is that at 7 o'clock or at 6:30, some dude comes out dressed in blue, tosses a ball out to the mound and says, play ball. So yes, it's different, but no, it isn't. You know what I mean? It's kind of like,
I totally do.
It's kind of like, okay, that's fine. Use the resources, do all this, whatever, evaluate here, do all that. And that's fine. When that umpire says play ball and throws the balls out, and that ball is thrown and put in play, somebody got to catch it. Somebody got to throw it, So that part of it really hasn't changed. It's still baseball.
Yeah, I agree with you. I have to ask you a question because it's always been concerning to me.
Yeah.
Because it happened. I saw it happen. And I remember you talking about it a long time ago. But explain to me what happened the time where you bunted and Dibble fielded the ball and came up and threw a P rod and hit you in the back or something.
All right, so for the fans who the viewers who don't know what we're talking about, so Rob Dibble was a big power pitcher for the Cincinnati Reds back in the early '90s. A good friend of Robbie's. Rob Dibble and I both came up through the minor leagues together, and he always struck me out. He threw 101 miles an hour, whatever. Nasty. Big high arm thing, leg up to over his head, all that stuff. Anyway, we're playing a game in Chicago at Wrigley Field, and it's obviously later in the game, and Rob's on the mound, and the score is 6-4. And Don Zimmer, my manager, put the suicide squeeze on, and he threw a pitch. I bunted it basically right back to him. He fielded the ball. I'm just jogging down the line. I got my job done, made the score 7-4, and he proceeded to take 4 or 5 or 6 steps straight to the foul line after I passed him and fired this ball, and it went off my leg and went out into right field, okay? Now, the reason we're bringing this up, because we need to set the story straight, because Rob Dibble used to be on the Dan Patrick Show. And every year they would show if there was a fight in Major League Baseball or something, a b-ball contest or whatever, viewers would always call into the Dan Patrick Show and say, Rob, what about the time you hit Dascenzo? A little side story to this. I was watching ESPN about 8, 6, 7 years ago, and they did a 30 for 30 with the Nasty Boys. Rob Dibble,
Norm
Charlton, and Randy Myers, right? And so they asked Rob Dibble at that time, or during that take, was that intentional that you hit Dascenzo? And he said absolutely. And he said no team is going to rub the score in our face 9-1 with guys bunt. So that was a lie, number one, okay? Then they switched over to Paul O'Neill, who wanted to chime in, okay? And they mentioned it to Paul, and Paul said, oh, yeah, Dascenzo, yeah, he didn't play he wasn't a very good player, man. He was a bad, that nasty player. He didn't play right. And that was definitely intentional. And everybody, you know that I don't play dirty, right?
No.
Anyway, Mobile, Alabama, my first place I coached for the Padres, AA hitting coach. That radio announcer, game announcer, had the direct line into the Dan Patrick Show. So after like 5, 7, 8, 10 years, okay, these players, that they would roll this tape once a year on the anniversary of the incident, right? Everybody thought it was funny, whatever. Rob and his fans and Dan Patrick Show were having a great time with it, okay? So all my players in Mobile said, hey, you need to call and get this guy, because they had just saw it the day before.
Right.
So I got the number. I got 7, 8 players sitting in Mobile, Alabama behind me, and I called. I said, I want to speak to Rob Dibble. And he wasn't on the air at the time, but he answered the phone, and I said, hey, Rob, what's up? What are you doing? I go, hey, do me a favor. And he's like, what? He said, the next time somebody asks you about the Dascenzo-Dibble incident, tell him the real reason why you hit me. And he's like, what are you talking about, Dougie? What's up? I said, no, I want you to tell him the real reason. He was like, what are you talking about? I said, because that's why. Oh, that's what you tell him.
Exactly. And you got a hit, right?
So what happened is that no. I mean, the play wasn't out, whatever. And he always struck me out in the minor. I could never touch him, right?
He always struck everybody out.
Oh, yeah. And then in the major league level, the first 3 at-bats, he'd always throw a fastball, slider, and would strike me out. Well, I figured, I better start swinging earlier, swing at the fastball, and then I started to get a couple hits off. But, that's hopefully you can pass this along and send this over to him. We can set everything straight.
Yeah, there you go. I'll get it taken care of for you. I got your back. You know that.
Oh, yeah.
No, I admired him a lot.
Oh yeah,
because
for sure.
because he was a competitor, man. He was competitive. It's like facing Jack Morris, Nolan Ryan. These guys were coming at you. They were going to get you out. And I love that competition. But I faced him one time in Lakeland when I was with the Tigers. And I mean, it was like, I think he was telling me, here it comes, see how far you can hit it. It was a spring training game. And he was throwing hard and he just kept throwing fastballs. And I ended up hitting a ball that I hit pretty good off him, but it got held up. But I like guys like that. I like playing against that because they were competitive and they had fire, you know?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, hey, I was 150 pounds. I'm not going to sit up there. I can't go toe to toe with a pitcher like Tony Gwynn used to, and we had an opportunity to play with Tony that year. Right. But you had to find a way to do it. You had to find a way to get it done.
Yeah.
You couldn't really rely on anybody else other than maybe your teammates, and you just had to figure it out. You had to get in the fight, stay in the fight, and figure it out. Really.
And I always say this, and people even comment on this. They send me little notes and they say how special it was. But, I say this a lot about what my dad said to me at an early age. And he always said to me, whatever you put into this is what you'll get out of it. And
correct.
I live my life the same way now, and it's just, if everybody's given an opportunity, somewhere down the line, you're going to get your break, right? You don't have to be 6'4", 270 pounds hitting balls. You can be a great defensive player. You could be a great infielder with great hands and know how to run the bases. You have like guys with speed like you that weren't going to hit the ball out of the ballpark very often. Like, why would you think about hitting the ball in the air, right?
Oh, exactly. I mean, that's not who I am, right?
Yeah, but my point is that you stick around the game for 40 years, being smart and understanding it and knowing what type of player you were, and it was always fun playing with you as far as a teammate. It was always fun coaching with you. We had so much fun in San Diego coaching. I was the hitting coordinator. You were the outfield base running coordinator. And then we had Cooch, Mike Couche, who I love him to death. He was the pitching coordinator. And it was just like, those are great times. And we had some great players, a lot of fun players. Batting practice was always fun.
Yeah.
But
we had a bunch of guys that were passionate, that were competitive, had a lot of competitiveness in them, a lot of knowledge, of course, and great work habits.
yes.
They never forgot where they came from. They didn't have any egos. I mean, when you have all those ingredients, you have a very, very special cake to eat, and
Right.
we got to eat a lot of good cake, man. We really did. I really appreciate it. And hanging out with you guys, and hey, who knows, man, we'll hook up together on a fishing trip. I'll throw my kayak on top of my Jeep and get out to Arizona.
Hey, I got up this morning. It's supposed to be 85. I'm going fishing tomorrow with my dad. So I'm going down right now to pick up my kayak. I'll be fishing tomorrow morning. I'll be fishing tomorrow morning. But like I said, I want you to come back. We talk about outfield stuff and maybe do something, because no one ever talks about that. And you could cover base running. You could cover outfield stuff. We could just talk about it.
No problem.
Because we always talk about hitting, but I want to talk about this stuff. And you're the best I've ever seen at all outfield stuff and base running.
For sure, man. I'd love to.
Take care of those grandkids and keep in touch with everything.
All right, I will, man. Hey, catch a big one. Send me a picture.